What happens then? Would you leave both the European Convention on Human Rights and the Refugee Convention?
Well, we don't expect that to happen. We are confident that we have...
Well, you accept it's possible, don't you? Because that's what it says on the bill.
Well, we're confident that we've got strong legal arguments. They are, in some cases, new and novel legal arguments. I don't think that should surprise anyone.
So the court might rule against you, mightn't they? That's the point of this warning.
Well,
it may be legal, it may not be, and that's going to be tested.
It's possible. These are new legal principles, but they're likely to be upheld by the courts.
So if you lose, a lot of your own colleagues are saying you need to leave the European Convention. Suella Braverman believes in leaving the European Convention. Is that the next step? Because a lot of people think you're gearing up to fight the next election on we'll pull out of the European Convention, Labour won't.
No, we don't think that's necessary. We want to remain within the European Convention to respect our international law obligations.
Can you explain why you're saying that somebody who may have been trafficked by criminal gangs onto a boat to arrive in Britain will no longer be able to tell the authorities here that they have been trafficked and claim the entitlements of modern slavery legislation?
Well,
you're going to deport them, aren't you?
Well, that's not quite right. What will happen is if you come here directly from a place of danger, then you can claim asylum in accordance with long-standing principles.
Being trafficked against their will.
Your example is that someone who has come through a succession of safe countries has almost certainly left France.
I'm talking about someone who's been trafficked against their will. You are now saying that they can no longer tell the police here that they are a victim of modern slavery and apply for asylum.
No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is that when they arrive in the UK, if they've come via a safe country like France, then they can make those claims and appeals, but they'll be non-suspensive, which means that they will either be returned home if it's safe to do so, and countries like Albania, which we believe are safe, have specific arrangements in place.
So you would
to support victims
of modern slavery?
We're not talking about deporting people, we're talking about
returning them somewhere else. That's
safely to their home country, or to a safe country like Rwanda, where they will be cared for with proper arrangements put in place. And at that point, they can put in their appeals, for example, on modern slavery.
Somebody in Iran fears for their lives, they're being persecuted. People have been killed in Iran by what I'm sure you'll agree is a repressive regime. How do they find a safe and legal route to claim asylum in Britain?
Well, today there's a number of safe and legal routes that we operate. We have resettlement schemes.
But you have to claim asylum somewhere else for the resettlement scheme. You can't just apply from Iran.
You can. We have schemes, for example, a community resettlement scheme, and we have a broader resettlement scheme where we work with the United Nations and
the UN scheme requires you to claim asylum somewhere else and then be resettled.
Well, you have to make contact with the UNHCR, which I think is an understandable check. We're the world's fourth largest recipient of individuals under the UNHCR scheme. Since 2015, 450,000 people have come to the UK under our humanitarian schemes from places like Ukraine, Hong Kong, Syria, Afghanistan.
No, that's the point. If you're Ukrainian, you get a visa, you get welcomed at the airport, you get a house, from a minister, in your case. If you're Iranian, chances are you'll be deported.
No. Well, firstly, I do think it's right that the UK prioritises its finite resources on those countries to which we feel we have the greatest geographic or moral or historical
that's interesting. So
obligation.
Ukrainians are more entitled than Iranians.
I don't think that the UK, or indeed any single country, can provide refuge to everyone in the world who wishes to.
So we have a greater moral duty to a Ukrainian than an Iranian. That's what you're saying.
Well, I think it's understandable that we make choices because we've got finite resources.
Isn't the truth that everybody wants to stop the boats? They're illegal, dangerous, horrific. Most people don't like the idea of illegal immigration, people who want to cheat the system. But most people are very uncomfortable with the idea of Britain turning away people who have genuinely suffered.
I think Britain is a very generous and big-hearted country, and the actions that we've taken as a country in recent years have demonstrated that. But I do think the British public are capable of making the distinction between those people who are genuinely fleeing war and persecution and human rights abuses, and people who are essentially economic migrants And I think that somebody who has arrived in a place of sanctuary, like France, with a well-functioning asylum system, and then chooses to come to the UK, is essentially becoming an economic migrant.
The immigration minister